Hello there folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel, a place where I discuss different topics like spirituality, deeper introspection, dream interpretation, game design, game analysis, and well, all other things. Now, the point about um, this video is that well, I woke up this morning with a hint, let's call it a nudge, to create a video about boasting. Um, since well, the purpose of this channel will be to simply demolish certain illusions and make people more knowledgeable of the subterfuges of the mind. I don't exactly know why I'm hinted at creating certain videos, but I won't mind doing that. So the topic of this video is boasting and why boasting actually makes you small. Now, in many situations you will see people boasting, and especially in this society where everything seems to be surrounded or seems to be hinting at, personal importance, the aspect of boasting will always be present more or less. There is a painful aspect to boasting because of our memory, our karma as a society and as a race. And well, boasting actually presents the opposite in many, I won't say most people's cases, but in many situations it kind of presents the opposite. Now, to many this might be actually already known, but let's dive a bit into it. In this society, and ever since we have known ourselves around, the aspect of persona has been a very significant one. Now, a persona is the Latin word for personality in English. What a personality basically means is it's a structure of you, it is a bit of you, it is a part of you that you have created and to whose existence you have agreed to accept. Now, what do I mean by this is very simple. You are creating different illusions, different beliefs within you, and as I've been presenting this in other videos as well, when you create a belief, it means you're creating something for which you're not requesting, you're not necessarily requesting proof. Okay, a belief is something accepted without a necessity for proof. Now, this belief is basically like a kind of a deity that you are supporting in your mind. Okay, this belief, any belief that you have, is like a deity in your mind, and a part of your existence will seek to fanatically support that as if it's the most important thing, because well, that's how the brain works. There are different types of neurons, okay, in the mind, and there are several specialized parts of the mind. One of these special parts, for example, takes care of whatever whatever you believe. It takes care of you finding logical proof for that. This can be a little bit tricky because many people might end up with a certain belief in their mind, and then you have little fanatics that fight over that. Now, what do I mean? Well, nowadays you can see that so many people have a very low self-esteem. Unfortunately, they don't seem to be looking to ditch the low self-esteem. They are simply stuck in that, and they even die for that. It's like you're convincing someone they suck, and you don't need to do anything more because they will desperately fight for that idea that they suck. Okay, and it doesn't take much brain to realize that this is nothing else than a result of a profoundly sick society. Now, boasting is usually done when you want to draw attention, because any action that you do it outside, you do it for attention. It's always like this, it's always been like this. It's not that nowadays things have become different. Now, attention in itself is a very powerful currency. What I have learned in time is that when you pay someone something, okay, you're basically paying them in triple, because you're paying someone or something with money. Okay, when you pay something with money, it means you're paying it with your past, because that money you created in a certain time frame, and now you're paying that money to someone, you're basically paying that you're paying them with your past. Okay, if something costs as much as your whole salary, buying that with that money means that you have also purchased it with a month, a whole month of your life, right? Your whole salary, right? The whole month, a whole month of your life. Now, from another standpoint, you're paying them not necessarily money and your past, you're paying them your attention, okay? And where attention goes, energy flows. So you're also paying them your energy. Ever been in those crowds where someone always speaks and you just have to listen, and well, you're feeling so bored and so tired and such? Well, boredom comes from a fact, okay? It comes from the fact that you simply feel you don't want to be doing that, but you're still doing it because for some reason you're giving your power towards that. And yes, this society functions in that way, and you know, the best example that might come up is school. You're going there not because you want it, it's because, well, your life as a child is basically slavery. You always have to do something that other people point at, and you know, your parents want one thing, school wants another thing, society always wants another thing, and it's always something as much as how much of your childhood can you actually miss, because that's basically what I see school like. It's not that you're going 6-7 hours a day in there, okay, plus the commuting, which can be another hour, and then you also have a huge amount of homework, which was my case. But I still ended up playing a bit with children, so I didn't end up, you know, being just a school handler, let's say. Now, the point about boasting is, in this society where people aren't simply represented by anything, everyone wants attention, okay? We are social beings, so attention is something that everyone will want. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the people live in a very unconscious way, okay, which means they allow circumstances to decide their fate. Now, of course, you can't control any circumstance, but at least you can work towards some to make them more favorable. So the point is that these people simply allow circumstances to do whatever needed for them. Now, these unconscious people, they will never live in the present, because you can only live consciously in the present and be fully aware of yourself. When people live unconsciously, they will always be trapped in the illusions of the past and the present. And as I've been saying, the past is only for regrets and the future is only for worrying, because the past has happened and nothing can be changed, only your perception towards that. And the future is yet to happen, and again, worrying about a situation won't change the outcome. If something would happen, it will happen, right? There is an Arab word that says that, and you know, maktub. It says it has been written. So to a certain extent, certain events are bound one way or another to happen. They will happen one way or another. It's just that the choices of each and every human being, as well as the collective consciousness and the humanity as a whole, will influence it more or less. They can delay that, or they can make it happen faster. So these people who live unconsciously, most likely they will live trapped in their karma, right? Their past. Regrets and misfulfillments, misaccomplishments, all these things will always take most of their mind, because they're not choosing to live consciously. If they would live consciously, it would mean that they are concentrating on their present, okay, and they are accepting things the way they are, and most likely they are doing the so-called shadow work, which would imply making peace, let's say, with aspects of your past that have been bothering you, because those things are like prisoners, okay? You're forcing them in the prison of your mind, you're suffering because of that, you don't know why you're suffering, and these thoughts keep popping into your mind for the only reason that they want to be liberated. Any thought that is any thought that hasn't been manifested, okay, will always seek to become pure. Now the point is, if they want to become pure, they have to be released, okay, but people haven't been taught to release them. You just have to think of them from a very detached way, okay, and see why you have been causing that much pain to yourself, because you have been causing pain to yourself for the only reason that, well, you are constantly thinking about that and it wasn't making you happy. That's why anxiety and stress are triggering, because people are doing things just because they are accepting them for the reason that no one else taught them there is another way, okay. And people nowadays are waking up to finally realize there are other ways to just go into a dumb school and, you know, mentally neutralize your child, right, neuter your child, while also there are alternatives to just working a stupid lame job, okay. Now of course it doesn't mean that one shouldn't work a job. In order to start a business, in order to start a certain hobby, someone still needs the money, okay. Now the point about bragging, okay, because I always have a habit of presenting things around to build a strong foundation before I present the topic itself. Now all these people who are unconscious, okay, they will always require some attention, okay. Now people who are conscious, okay, and those who become successful, they still require attention, but many of those are what is called a silent rainmaker, okay, people who you don't see too often on social media and on television, right? And they know that they don't want to attract the attention of the crowd, okay. They just want, if they want attention, well, they will get it sooner or later, because in order to be successful you have to speak with people, and it's always more rewarding to speak with like-minded people. When people speak about the crowd usually, you know, is in its slumber, right, in its subconscious sleep, or worse than that, unconscious sleep. So the point is, many of these people are, you know, the so-called experts. They don't know much about something, but suddenly they are, you know, the only ones or the main ones who give, you know, come up with ideas and suggestions over certain things, okay. Now people who are successful, okay, they don't need to brag necessarily about themselves, because bragging is not part of being successful. People who brag aren't necessarily, you know, it's not that they aren't successful, okay, but usually people who are aware of their success, okay, they don't need to brag, okay, because bragging usually means exaggerating something, okay. When you are successful over something, and especially when you're an authority figure in your field, okay, you know that that field simply, well, it can go on without you as well, but you have, you know, some weight in it, okay. When you are an authority figure, you don't need to brag anymore, because your actions already speak for yourself, okay. Words themselves are almost always hollow. They don't need, you know, they don't mean anything in most situations unless you actually support them with the corresponding actions, okay. Now bragging usually belongs to people who haven't achieved much in their life, or they have an exaggerated sense of life, okay. Now when you brag over something, okay, it usually implies that you're not simply grateful enough, okay. You're not giving the right amount of gratitude to the universe for what happened for you, okay, or what happened, yes, for your own development, and what help you've got from other people directly and indirectly, because every time you succeed something, you never know how many things other people did, people that you may not even know, that, well, you know, allowed you to get there. For example, in my life, I ended up being first place, you know, when I signed up for a university, okay. Now I ended up being first place 2 times in a row, but each time in a row I simply chose to withdraw because I had other greater choice that I, well, thought more important, okay. So I ditched the first place twice in a row, and, well, someone else, the second place, became the first place, right. I didn't know who the person on the second place was. Probably they knew my name, but, well, I made them a great service, okay. There are always such things that happen, and many people might say it's that illusion of coincidence. There is no such thing as coincidence, okay? Coincidence is just a small feat of the mind, okay? The mind will always try to define everything, but unfortunately for the mind, not everything can be defined, because there are so many things beyond the mind, okay? The mind is only good for survival and for handling the physical body, which again is a landmark of survival, okay? Now, people who boast, okay, unfortunately what they are really doing is they are actually showing you how small they basically are. Now, why I'm saying this is, in order to boast, okay, any action that you're doing, you need a certain person, okay, to do that. Now, why I say person, okay, let's call it a personality in a way, okay? You need a certain persona, okay, or a certain ego to do a certain thing, right? If you want to brag, you need a certain ego. If you want to play a video game, you need a different ego. People have ended up no longer realizing this state machine that exists within them, okay, which constantly switches from any personality to another one when they do different things, right? When you hate someone, you need a different ego. All these egos we have been creating in our minds through the stories that we have been putting out. As I said in the beginning, you see, when you create a certain belief and you accept it, it's like you're creating a pantheon in your mind. You're creating some deities that you're worshipping, okay? And the stories that you create, you know, it's the preachers, whatever you need for those to actually exist, right? You need a lot of things, right? So the point about boasting, okay, I almost lost an idea. And the point about boasting, okay, is that, well, just like these other things, you need a persona for that, right? You need a specialized persona for that. And as I was saying, you need a lot of egos, okay? You need a lot of things to support an ego, right? You need a lot of stories to support a certain belief, okay? Which, well, to me translates as a deity of your mental pantheon, right? So the more of these egos one has, basically the more fractured they are and the smaller they are, because they embrace life through what I call lenses, okay? They see life through thousands, probably, or, well, dozens, hundreds, thousands of lenses which alter your perception of reality, okay? In order to be a seer and see things the way they are, someone actually needs to learn how to detach themselves from these prisons of the mind, from these personas, okay? The only reason why people have been stuck thousands of generations in this monotonous way of being is that they have become identified with these, okay? When someone becomes identified with something, that's kind of the end, because when someone becomes identified with an idea, okay, this identification, in almost all situations, it's a belief, okay? Especially if it's done unconsciously, someone tells you something and you simply accept it, right? The point about this is, when you become identified with something, it's kind of game over, because you're ceding so much power towards that idea. You're now worshipping a deity of your mental pantheon, right? Instead of actually realizing your own potential and, you know, developing and improving upon that. So the unfortunate thing is, when people end up believing things, okay, they are simply negating themselves, basically, okay? They are making themselves small, because you're no longer yourself. When you say I am someone, be very careful, because I am are the most important words, okay? What comes after I am will probably become your identity, and there are parts within your mind that will even fight to the death to support those identities. And, well, if something within you would fight to the death, well, it can also have you even kill for that, because that's how the mind works. It will always support anything that it ends up identifying with. Think about society as it was back in the times. It was always a caste-based system, because we were aware only of that part of our mind, okay? Identification, right? Tribal existence. You would identify with a tribe and you would be ready to kill in the name of that tribe, okay, and you are even capable of dying for. But dying for something and killing for something, they're basically two faces of the same coin, right? So when you are doing this, okay, take great care, because your identity is a very important part of yourself, okay? It is usually the wound or the set of wounds that people have. So how should you act when you see people bragging? Well, in most situations, if you see, in all situations, if you see that that person is living unconsciously, okay, it's not hard to realize that, okay. Unconscious people don't have a sense of knowing what they are doing, okay. They are just doing certain things because most likely it's the only thing they know, and to them it's the only logical thing, because usually people end up giving too much importance to the brain itself and to the mind itself. The mind has a lot of layers, but unfortunately only this fully physical and fully mental layer of the mind we actually give so much importance to. Why this happens is because of our karma and what I would call, in order to heal the world, we need to heal Europe, okay, because Europe has been that continent. And I am from Europe, yes, but Europe has been and still is that continent, okay, which went through the most brutal repression, right? Christianity did a very brutal repression, and when its influences waned out, okay, when its influences faded, there was a big problem. There was a lot of suffering, so therefore a lot of karma that happened, okay, that was manifested in there for almost 1000 years, in which everything was fully repressed. And in that period of silence, so many people died when they wanted to say their own truth, so there was, and there still is, a lot of suffering. So the point about this is, this suffering still exists in the minds of us, because America, for example, much of it is still a conglomerate of, genetically speaking, European nations, okay. And what we did when we got everywhere in the world, we also took our karma and shared it with others, because when you have sex with others, you also share some of your karma, you also share a lot of your energy. So basically Europeans ended up as, giving up their feminine power, mainly because you can actually see it. The only god that has been worshipped was a male god, and creativity was kind of inexistent for a very long time, because it was only shaped in different sorts of art or ideas that would simply support Christianity, and that's it, okay. Any other sort of creativity was kind of fully repressed. And when a society doesn't have much of feminine energy, they will always exist in a lot of masculine energy, which implies boasting, self-affirmation, and sooner or later you will become conquerors, or raiders, pillagers, something like that. Such societies end up as conquerors because, without a feminine aspect, okay, they won't be living outside femininity, so they will only embrace the masculine energy, which means, to a certain extent, boasting included, but affirmation and conquest to a certain extent, because whatever you are going to do without feminine energy, you are doing it to gain some attention, but you will still be miserable because you are only willing to force others to submit to yourself. And that's what Europe has been for a very long time. All that period of repression had a very great influence on our minds, because, as it is said, one needs 28 days to create a new habit, okay. Now when the influence of Christianity faded, okay, this wound, okay, this repression that is still perceivable today, okay, because people are still willingly accepting the idea of being oppressed, okay, because they are still stuck in the idea that they must be oppressed, okay, everything in this name of the so-called white-bearded fucker, okay, and many people are still living those pains, okay, of being repressed. That is why our freedoms nowadays are being slowly taken away, but almost no one seems to be fighting for those, okay, fighting to keep them fighting to keep them. So all that repression has still a very great influence. All that karma still exists, all that memory still exists, and after Christianity's suppression faded, people simply exaggerated, okay, they simply propelled themselves in the other side of the spectrum. Okay, they suddenly placed so much importance to the mind that, well, they ended up creating a lot of false ideas. Okay, many people ended up with a lot of beliefs, and again, belief is accepting something without a necessity for proof. And suddenly being free to use your mind, but also not being trained to use your mind, was kind of a problem, because so many people nowadays still exist in that frame because, well, they exist in that frame. They believe that the mind is basically everything, and any idea they think it's ingenious. Okay, this is another form of silent bragging, because you're coming up with a lot of ideas that you're believing to be true, and you're putting them out in the world mainly because you still want attention. You're still suffering from this repression and, well, many other, ancestral wounds that haven't been, fixed yet. Okay, and the whole world has a lot of ancestral wounds. Okay, now boasting and bragging, okay, the same thing. They kind of show a person, okay, they kind of show everyone else how small that person is. Unfortunately, people have given so much power to these egos, okay, to this identification as something. Okay, you're a student, you're a pupil, you are something, you are that, you are a certain nationality, you're a certain personality, you're a certain gender. All these identifications simply make people smaller, and they split them within themselves. Okay, because you end up having so many personalities. Okay, if you want to make a YouTube video, you need a certain personality. You want to play a video game in a YouTube video, you need probably another personality. You want to present your homework, you need a certain personality, right? Even in your family, you need certain personalities to tackle your family members. So there is so much splitting within you. The more of this splitting that happens, okay, the more of this fracturing that happens within you, the smaller you basically are, because, well, the less control you actually have over yourself. So when someone boasts, they're basically showing how small they are, because instead of accepting themselves as, a universal existence, right, someone who embraces nature as a whole, they see the world as of just they and themselves, right? They and who they think they are. Okay, they and their personality, which makes them very small. People who embrace nature and people who embrace the possibilities of the universe, those people are really great. But unfortunately, in these days, you're gonna be mocked at if you're wanting to present yourself as that. However, people who are successful, they know that boasting isn't necessarily important. Okay, few of the people who are successful may actually brag, but as I've been saying, bragging shows that you still have wounds. Okay, those wounds are keeping you fractured and stuck in certain beliefs. Okay, so all this being said, hopefully you like the type of content that I'm creating. Feel free to like and subscribe. Feel free to share with others so that we raise the awareness of others. Keep up the great work. You are loved and appreciated. Stay safe, stay blessed, and, well, take care of yourselves and your loved ones. And, well, all this being said, whatever you're doing is the best you can at the right pace for you. Ferinjan Board signing out.